Welcome everyone to the second training in a four-part series on strengthening the workforce through integration of peer recovery services, building sustainable partnerships. There are two remaining sessions in the series that are going to be held following Tuesdays in August from 11 to 12:30, same time as we have today. Go ahead and drop those in the chat in a second here. If you haven't registered for the upcoming trainings, please feel free to do so. We are grateful for the Illinois Department of Human Services Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery for the funding provided for this training series. This and all trainings in this series were developed by Peer Power in collaboration with peer recovery support leaders throughout Illinois. Peer Power is a national peer-run company based in Illinois that develops peer leaders who positively impact the systems in which they live, work, and learn. Peer Power is birthed out of a need that Trenda Hedges recognized for peer recovery support professional development. Peer Power contracts with community organizations, providers, state and federal departments, schools, and other entities to develop peer training and provide technical assistance to enhance fidelity of peer services and further the integration of peer recovery support workforce. You can find more information by visiting our Peer Power website. I will drop that along with the link to register in just a second. Just a little bit about me. My name is Toni Lynn Packus. I am the founder of Be Heard, Be Healed Studios. What we do is create spaces like this for everyone to come together, collaborate, learn, and drive impact. You could learn more about us at our website, bhbh.us. Now let me introduce our amazing speakers for today. Trenda Hedges is the founder of Peer Power and a leader in peer support integration, partnering with IDHS, DBHR on multiple projects over the past 15 years. She has contributed to national and state initiatives, including the Michigan and North Carolina Warm Lines and the SAMHSA National Guidelines for Crisis Care. An author of numerous peer support trainings, she is known for creating spaces where people bring their authentic selves and mutually learn from one another. She holds CRSS, CPRS, and advanced level RAP facilitator credentials, along with degrees in criminal justice and counseling. Mike Tyson is a person in long-term recovery and a certified peer recovery specialist. He is a founding board member of Take Action Today, a faith-based recovery community organization in Southern Illinois, and a founding member of the Southern Illinois Recovery Network. As the regional capacity developer for the Southern Illinois Resource and Advocacy Center, Mike collaborates with grassroots organizations and local stakeholders to enhance peer-based support services and not-for-profit infrastructure. Nationally, he serves as the executive director of the National Peer Recovery Alliance, where he strengthens and empowers peer support specialists nationwide. He is also a board member of the Illinois Certification Board. A convicted felon with limited education, Mike spent over a decade in the underground coal mining industry before enrolling in college at the age of 42. In 2022, he graduated magna cum laude from Purdue University Global with a BS in psychology and addictions. He has completed his MSW at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 2025 with a concentration in leadership and social change. This blend of lived experience and education enables him to impact various systems affecting individuals facing chronic substance use, mental health challenges, and homelessness. Mike resides in rural Southern Illinois with his wife and their two adult children and an exuberant golden doodle named Champ. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Trenda, and I will get you those links in the chat there.
That statement about Champ cracks me up every time I hear it. I love it. Give Champ his credit, right? Thank you for the introductions, Toni. We're so grateful for the ways that you're supporting this virtual event series. Listen, folks, if you need someone to support your virtual events, Be Heard, Be Healed Studios are top notch. So yeah, reach out to them. So let's see who we have in this virtual space today. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, but we also just launched a poll to capture the roles of participants. So we ask that you choose your primary role, even if you serve in more than one role, so we can just kind of get an idea of who's in this space with us today. Nice. Looks like peer recovery support specialists are winning out here. Love the representation. If you don't see your role, feel free to select other and drop your role in the chat.
And if I could just let folks know, if you don't hit the submit button, we will not see your vote. So
Thank you for that.
we've got 52 out of 64, and we'll close the poll in 3, 2, 1. And there's your results.
Nice. 25% representation by peer recovery support specialist. And then followed closely behind that is a list of administrators. Like, I feel like this is so powerful to see so many administrators, directors, program managers, supervisors on this virtual training series. It's been really powerful to see so many interested in peer integration. So thanks for sharing those results. Tony.
Yeah, you gotta stop sharing yourself because you're a co-host.
Okay. Thank you. You know, I'm just clueless on how this stuff works. That's why we have you here. All right. So we are starting each training in this series with an overview of our position on peer recovery support to anchor us and support role alignment. Too often, peer recovery support roles are unintentionally diluted or misaligned due to either a lack of clarity or some kind of pressure to conform to the system, like maybe billing or documentation. To prevent this, we must root our efforts in a definition of peer recovery support that honors its distinct identity, evidence-based foundation, and transformational power. So at Peer Power, we believe that peer recovery support is grounded in a unique model built on the integration of 3 core components: lived experience, lived expertise, and training and reflective practice. These 3 components together form the peer recovery support model. No single component on its own fully constitutes the peer model. Rather, it's that combination that ensures fidelity to the role, it upholds its transformational impact, and preserves its non-clinical, person-centered nature. It's a distinct model that draws its power from the credibility, trust, and relational equity that only those with lived experience and lived expertise can offer when supported by robust training and a commitment to reflective growth. So each position paper to learn more about each of the 3 components. Tony's dropping that file in the chat. So let's look at the results from the self-assessment that was offered during registration for this training. This assessment focused on partnership efforts with peer-run and recovery community organizations. And I have seen steady results coming through after I pulled these results even, right? So I love that there's still interest in it, and I'm going to pull those results again. But as of about 9:30 this morning, we saw scoring ranged from developing to emerging to active collaboration, and 86% of organizations that responded have either emerging partnerships or they're already actively collaborating with peer-run orgs. The other 14% are getting ready. They're getting ready to partner. So this gives us a picture of the level of commitment that exists among participants of this training to build sustainable partnerships. I might be aging myself here. I might be aging myself here, but I can remember when providers didn't even hire people with lived experience, much less partner with our organizations. So what an incredible shift that's happened in our system of care. I think it's so powerful, and the system is transforming through these partnerships. So let's dive into our material. Our goal by the end of this training is that you will be able to compare and contrast collaborative opportunities with peer organizations, discuss key tools to formalize partnerships, and evaluate partnership scenarios for effectiveness. So Mike, can you tell us what happens when traditional treatment settings work with peer-run organizations?
Absolutely, I can. Good morning, everybody. As we explore the role of partnership in behavioral health, it's important to pause and reflect on the unique value that peer-run organizations bring to the table. These organizations, led by individuals with lived experience of mental health or substance use challenges, are not just service providers. They are community anchors, advocates, and culture shapers. This quote captures the heart of why these partnerships matter. By working alongside traditional providers, peer-run organizations don't compete with clinical services, they enhance them. They fill critical gaps, build trust with communities, and offer non-clinical spaces where people can be seen, heard, and supported in ways that feel deeply human. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of collaborating with peer-run organizations and how they contribute to a better, more equitable care. Sorry, I got lost on my slides. You may have noticed that we use the term peer run in the last slide. Another term you might hear often is peer led. Let's take a moment to clarify the difference between these two terms. Peer run refers to organizations that are fully owned and operated by people with lived experience. All decisions are made by peers, rooted in peer values. Peer led usually describes services for or groups delivered by peers, but the overall program may not be peer controlled. Both are valuable and evidence based, but what sets them apart is who holds the decision making power.
Yeah, so when traditional treatment settings collaborate with peer-run organizations, some key benefits emerge. Peer support providers enhance the quality of life. Their support can provide high-cost services can prevent high-cost services such as rehospitalization and days spent inpatient. Integrating peer support providers increases organizational awareness of the needs of people receiving services. This leads to more personalized, holistic, and effective services. Peer recovery specialists build trust and have a greater likelihood of engaging people who would not otherwise be involved in services. This engagement decreases no-show rates, and partnering with peer-run organizations results in a greater awareness of needs that may be impacting overall health and wellness, like social determinants of health and the 8 dimensions of wellness. Added revenue can come from Medicaid reimbursement and a decrease in onboarding and training costs. So with the benefits listed on that previous slide and the results of this session's self-assessment, we are curious about how peer recovery support organizations are currently included in your partnership efforts. So we're going to launch another poll, and you may select multiple options that best describe your current partnership efforts with peer-run orgs or with RCOs. If none of those options match how you partner, select other, put your answer in the chat. So you can select multiple options, select more than one if your organization is partnering with others in different capacities. Love it. I'm seeing contracted for services coming through, embedded peer staff. This is great. Loving some of these results already early on. Recipient of pass-through funding or mini grants. Love it when we can share funding sources, right? Like that's a key in our field, is being able to share funding. Joint training and workforce development. This is good stuff. Shared learning networks, peer collaboratives. Yeah, this is great. So looks like joint training and workforce development efforts is a big one. Co-facilitator of groups, events, or lived experience panels is another one. What else do we have? Embedded peer staff that are employed by peer-run orgs. So I love that. And contracting for services. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing how you're currently incorporating or partnering in different ways with peer-run organizations. So we would be amiss if we didn't introduce recovery-oriented systems of care when discussing partnerships. If you're not familiar with ROSCs, we have a short video that explains them. So Tony, can you go ahead and play that video?
Recovery from substance use disorder is a lifelong process, similar to other chronic conditions like diabetes or heart disease. In our society's relatively short history of treating substance use disorders, most of our efforts have been focused on short-term treatments provided at a point of crisis. Over the long term, effectively treating substance use disorders requires a range of personalized supports that work together to foster healthy growth and a meaningful life. This is known as a recovery-oriented system of care. For recovery to fully take root, all aspects of a person's life must be addressed. A recovery-oriented system of care encompasses the entire network of services and supports that help individuals improve health and sustain wellness. The focus of care expands beyond clinically directed models to engage the larger ecosystem of support that is community-based, person-centered, and builds on the strength and resilience of individuals, families, and communities. Recovery-oriented systems of care build partnerships and networks that increase recovery capital. This inspires positive outcomes by promoting prevention, early intervention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery support across a person's entire life. This system recognizes that each individual is worthy of culturally relevant, comprehensive, coordinated care for their unique situation. Resources in the community are easily accessed and leveraged toward achieving each individual's goals. The central focus of a recovery-oriented system of care is to create a vibrant ecosystem of supports and resources to effectively address the full range of substance use challenges within communities, placing the person receiving support at the center of the process. This transformation of thought, policy, and practice emphasizes the hope and reality of a fruitful, long-term recovery. For more information on the benefits of a recovery-oriented system of care, visit the Peer Recovery Center of Excellence.
As the video mentioned, one of the goals of recovery-oriented systems of care is to create a vibrant ecosystem of supports and resources. Speaking of ecosystems, ROS fall within the institutional level of the recovery-ready ecosystem model. This model identifies micro, meso, and macro elements that have been found to support recovery. This model can both assess supports and identify barriers to recovery, while creating a framework for the deployment of system elements to further enhance recovery success. Research tells us that community-based innovations, such as recovery community organizations and other peer recovery support services, have provided evidence of successfully scaling recovery efforts and improving the chance of sustained recovery for individuals that will live within the community. The recovery-ready ecosystem model builds upon the work of the recovery-oriented system of care, highlighting support structures such as harm reduction, educational recovery programs, and other traditional support structures. While peer services are mentioned in the community level, we sometimes see them show up on all of the levels in the model. And that means that there are multiple opportunities to collaborate or partner with peer-run organizations and RCOs. Whether you are just beginning to implement peer support services or you have been offering peer services for decades, many peer-run organizations have solid experience in both directly providing services and supporting organizations. This expertise proves invaluable for every phase from initial implementation to quality improvement processes. We have identified 4 common approaches to collaboration: contracted services, contracted staff, peer supervision, and technical assistance. Each of these can serve different purposes depending on your goals, capacity, and the maturity of your peer support program.
So let's take a look at the first of those 4 common approaches that organizations can use to bring in or expand peer support services. Contracted services. This might include some of the services listed here on this slide, such as embedded staff and programming. This means bringing peer workers in as part of your existing team, but through partnership. For example, an RCO may place peer specialists to work inside your crisis center or outpatient clinic while remaining employed and supervised by the RCO. This keeps the integrity of the peer role intact while supporting integration within your services. This model often ensures better alignment with peer values because supervision and training remain within peer-run orgs. Peer services involves formal contracts with an external peer-run organization or RCO to deliver specific services. That might be warm line support, peer-led groups, or outreach and engagement. It's a great way to expand your scope without internal hiring, and it reinforces community partnerships. Sometimes the first step isn't staffing, but preparing your existing team. You can contract with peer-run orgs or national and state certified trainers to deliver specialized training like Wellness Recovery Action Plan, Trauma-Informed Supervision, ECPR, Whole Health Action Management, and more. This supports culture change from the inside out and shows commitment to respectful collaboration. And then short-term grants. Some organizations don't try to recreate the wheel for specific grant awards, but rather choose to outsource the peer services to a peer-run organization that's already offering similar services in the community. We see this a lot with RCOs and larger behavioral health providers. In all of these instances, the peer-run organization might be responsible for service development and delivery, management, staffing, supervision, and data collection. Each of these options can be sustainable when done with intention. The key is not just what you contract, but how you partner. Relationships, respect, and role integrity are at the heart of the partnership. So in the contracted peer staff model, peer staff are embedded within your organization's team and day-to-day programming, but they're not your direct hires. They remain employed by a peer-run organization and work on-site or side-by-side with your clinical or support teams. This model is used to support integration while protecting the unique culture and supervision needs of peer staff. The host organization, like maybe a behavioral health provider, manages the peer support program entirely. The provider maintains oversight of services and delivery. And then peer staff are employed by the peer-run organization, which protects the peer role, offers culturally aligned supervision, and supports fidelity to peer recovery competencies and values. It also reduces role confusion. Collaboration and training between the two organizations ensures all staff understand the peer role, reduces stigma, and creates shared ownership of the program's success. This piece helps bridge culture and avoids power imbalances. In this model, the peer-run organization may be responsible for service delivery, staffing, supervision, and collaborative training. So Mike, will you tell us what contracted peer supervision looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about contracted peer supervision, a critical piece of sustaining the integrity of peer roles, how supervision is structured can make or break the experience for peer staff and subsequently the outcomes of peer services. The provider organization hires peer staff to streamline HR processes. They remain, they maintain clinical supervision of over the program in general, but contract peer supervision with a peer-run organization. This ensures supervision is grounded in lived experience and aligned with national peer support values. Contracting peer supervision with a peer-run organization protects role integrity and provides a safe, affirming space for peer workers to process successes, challenges, and grow in their role. Contracted peer supervision is often combined with technical assistance, like training for supervisors, support developing job descriptions, policy reviews, and/or consultation on peer role clarity. This can be especially helpful for organizations newer to peer services. It builds internal capacity while ensuring immediate role alignment support for peer workers. Again, like contracted peer staff, collaboration and training between the two organizations ensures all staff understand the peer role, reduces stigma, and creates shared ownership of the program's successes. This piece helps bridge organizational cultures, reduces role confusion, and creates a shared understanding of how peer services fit within different teams. In this model, the peer-run organization may be responsible for supervision, peer staff training, and professional development, and collaboration and training with the host organization. Ultimately, supervision is about supporting peer workers to thrive, not just monitoring performance. We encourage you to register for the August 19th training on supervision and fidelity to learn more about how supervision supports fidelity of the peer services and outcomes. The final collaborative model focuses on peer technical assistance. This is a flexible and powerful strategy to strengthen your peer programming, especially when you are looking to ensure role fidelity, improve integration, or scale peer services sustainably. TA can provide hands-on support with launching or improving peer services. This might include program design, writing job descriptions, developing workflows, or co-creating documentation and policies that align with peer values. TA brings in experienced partners to build or refine your approach. Peer TA is highly customizable. It is not a one-size-fits-all package. Whether you need help preparing leadership, training supervisors, building career ladders, or navigating role confusion, TA can be shaped around your exact needs. This level of customization ensures that support is relevant to your culture, your team members, and where you are in your peer integration journey. Along with customizable technical assistance, also comes the option for duration. TA can be a short-term engagement, like a one-time training or consultation, or a long-term partnership that includes coaching, co-facilitation, and technical guidance over time. All forms of TA support fidelity of peer services. Ongoing TA supports continuous improvement and sustainability. Whether you're just starting to implement peer services or looking to strengthen what's already in place, contracted peer TA brings deep expertise, fresh perspective, and practical tools to the table. It's a smart investment in both impact and integrity. If you are interested in technical assistance, you can book a free consultation with Peer Power through this link. Tony will drop in the chat.
Nice. Thanks, Mike. So we are delighted to have a guest speaker on today. John Magnuson is the founder and the executive director of the Next Network, a recovery community organization. In addition to serving communities as a pastor for over 15 years, John is a passionate advocate for community development. Through the Next Network and their partnering organizations, he works to bring resources, education, tools, and hope to marginalized individuals, families, and communities that have fallen into gaps created by traditional healthcare systems and structures in rural areas. John, we are truly honored to have you join us today. So will you share what your partnership experiences have looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody here that took time today to be on the training. Mike, I love what you said about community organizations, that they are not only community advocates, but community anchors as well. And I just love this idea. I have worked tirelessly for over a decade to try to build, create, and work within systems to where everybody wins, especially the marginalized and people who are usually stigmatized and pushed outward. So I want to begin with a quote that has really stuck with me. It's kind of influenced by Peter Block. It says, true collaboration happens when every partner sees the other not just as a resource, but as a co-author of change. There is this idea within organizations that I think if we look at other people as a co-author of change, that just shifts our willingness and kind of the reason why we try to collaborate outside of our organizations. A few weeks ago, I got a phone call from a primary care provider in my area, and a nurse was on the other line, and she was pretty, you could tell in her voice that she was distraught and frustrated. And she began asking me a question of how she could get a female patient connected to our service. And after after a few minutes, the story began to unfold. The young woman was in her 20s. She was diagnosed as a bipolar with schizophrenia. And she was in the midst of a manic episode. And any of you that have been around that know that that is just, it changes moment by moment. She was non-compliant with medication. And through her interaction with this primary care physician and the nurse, a story began to unfold that she didn't want any help, but she was willing to go to treatment. And the nurse had heard about our organization. So I talked to her about the process of what that would mean, releases of information, all that type of stuff, primarily just the address and say, we're safe, send her here. And a couple hours later, the young woman and her dad showed up, and we were able to do an intake and connect her to a bed that was available the very next day. And this was a beautiful start to this story. The primary care physician realized her limitations in terms of resources, in terms of expertise, in terms of experience even. And we were able to come alongside of the family and alongside of this clinical organization, and we were able to share support and use our resources and our strengths just to help. So what this highlights for me is just really a couple of things that I think are crucial when we are talking about partnership. So with anything in these things, there's just three things. Each one of us needs to recognize our strengths and our limitations, right? We all have things that we are really good at, and we all have things that we can do, but maybe we're not the best at. And we all have things, if we're just really being honest with each other here this morning, we have no business doing whatsoever, okay? So in any form of great collaboration, there is a recognition of strengths and limitations. The second thing I would say is there's a willingness to collaborate for the greater good, okay? That nurse could have tried to connect her to a higher level of care. She could have tried to connect her to a treatment center. They could have tried all of this. But what she said is, hey, listen, I'm hitting the barrier with this client. They're expressing their need for a greater form of care. And I'm going to say, maybe I'm not the best person for this. And they were willing to collaborate for the greater good beyond themselves, right? And the third thing that is just crucial is just they knew about an organization that could help, right? So they had this third step of connection to support services outside of the organization. We all need to develop the habit of saying, if I'm not the best person or organization, who is, right? If I know my limitations and I know this isn't my lane, whose lane is it, and who's the best person for me to call? And these are crucial because much like most stories involving somebody who has both substance use and mental health, her story didn't end there, right? I would love to tell you that she had a bed the next day and she went and everything was great, but her story didn't end there. So the next morning, her dad calls me distraught. Because not only had she missed her appointment, the reason she missed her appointment is because she left home. And this wasn't uncommon for her. So I took the time to console Dad to try to, try to console him as a person that has not only walked that pathway myself in terms of mental health and substance use, but a person who has navigated alongside of people who have done that. And a few hours later, lo and behold, she shows up at her office, and there is obvious signs that she has been in some form of physical altercation. But when she walks through the door, even though she shows these signs, she is just calm and kind of talking to me like I was talking to you. A few moments later, law enforcement shows up and just wants to make sure that she's actually in the building, right? Dad had called for a wellness check. Daughter had left. He was afraid for her safety. She had contact and she told law enforcement that she was going to the next network. And we, without breaking any significant forms of confidentiality, were able to satisfy the police officer's curiosity that she was indeed in our care. Okay.
Mm.
After about 20 minutes of us talking to her in that moment, she was willing to allow us to take her to a facility that could help her more. I have great peers. I would put my peers against any other peer in the state of Illinois, okay? But my peers are not clinical. My peers cannot administer medication, and to be very honest, we have no business even entering into that conversation, okay? But what we were able to do is say, hey, listen, would you be willing to go to a place and we will go with you to get you a little bit better help while we try to figure out how we can still get you to treatment? And she agreed. We were able to provide her transportation. The place she was able to go was allowed and was able to give her medication, which allowed her to kind of reach this sustainable baseline until she was able to go to treatment. In addition to that, this facility actually had a bed where she could stay overnight. That allowed the family a little bit of a break, that allowed her to be around people who would care. And this is just so beautiful because it highlights a couple more things that I think make this collaboration crucial. Okay. So the first one is just flexibility. Okay. We have to be willing to pivot at any time. If it's not working, then I need to try to just say, hey, I don't need to be the hero of the story. I need to try to guide you towards something that does work. Even if it's not me, if my client wins, it's a win for everybody, right? The second part of this is, when we look at peers, a lot of times there's this distinction between credentials, and I think sometimes unintentionally we can become kind of biased in that capacity. So, my organization had the flexibility to be able to pivot, to be able to provide transportation, to be able to shift. In addition to that, my organization had people that did have the credentials to be able to accurately talk to her in this crisis situation. All of my peers have mental health first aid. All of my peers are certified with CPRS, CRSS. We are specialized in trauma-informed care. We are trained in the art of de-escalation, okay? So when we have a community organization that says, hey, I have somebody that's non-compliant and in a manic episode, I have peers that are flexible and highly trained. In addition to that, probably one of the most beautiful things about peers is the experience that they carry. I had no idea because, I'm an administrator now, so 90% of my time's paperwork and behind a desk and having different conversations, okay? I had no idea that so many members of my team had shared lived experience with this client. Monday staff meeting after this, they all shared to say, hey, yeah, no, we used to get high together and I know this person. And when they were in the car together and they said, hey, I can take you to this place, will you trust me? That shared experience and that shared life was able to do so much more than just a simple referral, right? So this is just a beautiful example of collaboration, not only the need for it, but just the benefit of partnering with, I believe, community-based organizations, okay? I partnered with one to send her to the next level of care. And this is just one story. I have so many more I could tell you about. One that just happened recently is a man came in yesterday and he finally was at a point where he decided that going into long-term care was part of what he needed for his wellness journey, right? Biggest thing he was concerned about was what? His two dogs. He's living in the trailer with no food, no water, no electricity, but he absolutely would not make any form of commitment until I agreed to try to find him somebody that could temporarily watch his pets, right? Put it out on Facebook, partnering with other community organizations. Within 2 hours, I had something set up. That's absolutely powerful. I can tell you that a month ago, the hospital called us to say, hey, we have a person who's in detox, and we would love just for one of your peers to come talk to him. And lo and behold, when that peer showed up, they recognized that person from 12-step recovery meetings. And they walked with him for a half a mile to the outpatient facility, right? And they stayed with him the entire time. And guess who they did a warm handoff with? Another peer that they knew from recovery. And they were able to say, hey, this is my friend, and I trust them. And I'm going to have you start the conversation with them. Again, my peer didn't have to be the hero of the story, right? We didn't have to finish that. I just had to connect them to the person that could, because the outpatient clinic could give them medicine that I cannot give them and I'm not designed to give them, right? This is where clinical services come in. And the other one that sticks to my mind is probably about 3 months ago, we were taking somebody to a hospital for a mental health care facility base. And it was so beautiful that the person was nervous. And if you've ever experienced that, you know, it's about a 4-hour wait to even get in to see somebody, and you're sitting there the entire time. And my peer was able to sit there with the client and share the story to say, hey, you know, a year ago, I was in this exact same facility. That's the power of community-based organizations. And I just want to share with you that even when I'm contacted in any capacity by a partnering organization, a clinical-based organization, I am so giddy because I know that the help that we can offer people, and it just becomes this holistic form of care. And I just want to reiterate the quote towards the end as I close here. True collaboration happens when every partner sees the other person not just as a resource, but as a co-author of change. Thank you guys so much for taking time to listen to me, and I'm so incredibly excited to be here today.
I love that. Co-author of change. Co-author of change. Wow. Thanks, John. Those are powerful experiences. And I think it really gives that, real life example of what it's like to partner with community organizations and for peer run organizations to also partner with other entities as well. So thank you so much. So now that we have explored some options for partnerships and we've heard from John, I want to invite you to share one word that reflects what meaningful partnership with peer-run or recovery community organizations looks like to you. It could be a value, it could be a structure, maybe a feeling, or even an aspiration. Whatever comes to mind when you think about partnership. Symbiosis. That's a good word. Transparency. Love that. Trust. Collaboration. Humility. Love it. Look at all these great words. Cooperation. Understanding. Faith. Hope. Normalizing. Dependability. Dependability. Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Nice. Acceptance. Yeah, reduction of stigma. That's another one, Gina. Good. Supportive, trust. So looking at this word cloud, and keep putting your words in if you still haven't come up with one and you're thinking about it, keep doing it. What word stands out to you and why? What word stands out to you and why? Feel free to raise your hand, and you can verbally contribute if you want to, or just throw it in chat. What word stands out to you and why? Gosh, these are great words. Great words. Yeah, Melissa, life-changing, life-changing. Love that, Joanna. Synergy. Woo, that's a good one too. Synergy. genuine, connecting, so many great words. Tony, I don't know if you can capture that word cloud, like screenshot it or save it, because I really want to include that in our slide deck when we send it out to participants and also to people that weren't able to attend. Yeah, Connie, symbiosis. You've never heard that word before, and now you know, and it was great. That's a great response. Thanks so much for sharing that. All right, so what do we got coming up next here? All right,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about some formal agreements or formal structures. Meaningful partnerships require choosing the right structure for your form of collaboration. So let's take a minute to walk through these 3 key tools that help formalize those partnerships: MOUs, or memorandums of understanding, subcontracts, and partnership agreements. Each one of these serves a different purpose, and the best option depends on some factors, including the level of formality that you need. Like, how formal do you need the agreement to be? Whether money is being exchanged, and how deep or long-term the partnership is. So let's cover MOU. So while an MOU can be either binding or non-binding, depending on the specific language and intent of the parties involved, they're generally a non-binding agreement, but they can be drafted to include specific obligations that may make them partially or fully enforceable. So it is advisable to have legal counsel review any MOU, especially if it involves significant commitments or potential liabilities. An MOU outlines the intentions, roles, and responsibilities of 2 or more organizations working together. I'm going to say that again. An MOU outlines the intentions, roles, and responsibilities of 2 or more organizations working together. An MOU's key features are that it describes shared goals and areas of collaboration. It outlines what each party will contribute, like staff time, space, referrals, training, etc. It establishes shared principles or values. So, for example, trauma-informed or peer-led or equitable. And it's typically used in the early stages of a partnership or when no money is exchanged. Additionally, an MOU provides accountability through transparency. MOUs may be used to establish a referral partnership with a peer-run org. They may be used to embed peer support specialists from one org into another team. Maybe they're used when piloting a collaboration and testing fit or testing structure. And they can be used to formalize roles in a coalition or a working group. We're going to drop a link to a sample MOU form in the chat. It's just a sample MOU form. There's other sample forms available through the internet. Again, though, it's advisable to have legal counsel review any MOU. So, Mike, you want to tell us about subcontracts?
Absolutely. A subcontract is a formal, legally binding agreement where one organization, the primary contractor, pays another organization, the subcontractor, to perform specific services. The subcontractor is held to specific terms, deliverables, timelines, and reporting requirements. Subcontracts may be developed by the main organization, their legal counsel, or the peer-run organization. A subcontract includes payment terms, deliverables, outcome measures, reporting, liability. It is often tied to a larger grant or contract held by the primary organization. Subcontracts are also legally enforceable and may include penalties for non-performance. They may also include require compliance with funder or government rules such as billing, licensing, and training. Subcontracts are generally used when a peer-run organization is delivering contracted services, such as warm line operations, recovery coaching, or peer-led groups. When partnering under a grant-funded initiative that requires formal deliverables, subcontracts are usually more appropriate than MOUs. When the scope of work is well defined, subcontracts generally help with defining the scope of work and if compensation is included. A partnership agreement, on the other hand, is a broad, customizable document that defines the long-term collaboration between organizations. Partnership agreements can be legally binding or informal depending on how it's written. It may contain elements of both an MOU and a subcontract, depending on the structure. It's often more comprehensive and may be used in joint ventures, strategic alliances, or shared leadership models. A partnership agreement defines the nature of the relationship, collaborative, strategic, or programmatic. Partnership agreements also may include cost sharing, decision-making structures, or governance roles. They clarify how risk, resources, and responsibility are shared, and is often reviewed annually or at key project milestones. Partnership agreements are used when building a long-term relationship with a peer-run organization. They are also used when both parties are co-leading or a grant or shared service delivery. When developing a co-governed program or shared leadership structure, and when aligning multiple organizations like RCOs, behavioral health providers, and funders around the same systemic goals. We would like to bring John back to the screen to share with us a little bit about how the Next Network has utilized partnership agreements in their day-to-day operation. John?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so we actually have all three, and they all serve kind of different purposes. So with a local outpatient clinic, we have an MOU. And ideally, that is for us, that is for information sharing, referrals, just kind of this basic understanding, I will offer services where you can't, and I'm going to go to you to offer services where I can't. In terms of a subcontract, we have one of those with a partnering organization. They have a grant for a living room style operation, right? But one of the things they cannot provide is transportation, right? So in their grant, they have money allotted for transportation. They don't have any resources to do it. Through a partnership with them, we are able to provide the transportation services. Two peers, again, highly trained, right? And what that allows us to do is it subsidizes my program and my costs, and it helps everyone meet their deliverables in that capacity. And one of the things I was just thinking about through the explanation of a partnership agreement is we have something very informal and verbal with our local police department. So we are a SSP, right? A Safe Syringe Access Point. Which means we offer harm reduction services and safer usage supplies in that capacity. What we wanted to do was have a partnership agreement with the local police department that says, hey, listen, we are going to be providing these supplies. So if you see them, this is what they're going to look like. And in addition to that, our clients are going to have these little cards. And we wanted to show them the cards, have an understanding of the cards. And it was more of this idea that says, hey, listen, we are not asking you to change anything that you do. We just wanted to come to an agreement that this is what we are going to do. Here are the rules that we are going to play by. Here are some of the things that you are going to see in the way that we are doing this. And we would love to continue to work with you to help individuals who may have contact with you in the future. So those are just three very different examples: an MOU for services, a subcontract for deliverables in terms of payment, and a partnership agreement with the chief of police, who I love and I sat on the mental health board with for 3 years, just to say, hey, Kenny, here's what we're doing. How can we help each other? And those are the three things that I have in that capacity. So thanks, Mike, for thinking of me.
Nice. Love it. What great examples. I mean, we can do this. Do you guys hear this? Like, everyone that's on here, do you hear this can be done? And John's organization is living proof of that. All right, so last week I noticed that when we said we're going to go into breakout rooms, a lot of people split. They were like, yep, I'm out of here. See ya, bye. So we're going to do it again. If you feel like you have to leave, I encourage you to stay for this, because this is where the true collaboration actually begins. So we're going to move into breakout rooms to explore real world collaborative scenarios that involve peer recovery support organizations. Tony's going to share a slide in your breakout rooms, and it's going to have 4 scenarios on it. In your room, we want you to select one of those 4 scenarios to discuss, and then choose a reporter to report back, and then consider the questions that are on the slide. Feel free to draw from your own experience, think creatively about how these partnerships can be both sustainable and rooted in peer values. So you'll have about 10 minutes once you get into your breakout rooms to discuss the scenario and the questions on the slide, and then we'll bring you back and hear from you on what you came up with. So
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed their time in the breakout rooms. I'm sure it was some great conversation. I wish I could have been in there to hear some of it. But we'd like to take a little bit of opportunity to hear what some of you guys discussed and hear some of the ideas, and let you guys share a little bit. Would anybody like to share starting off?
I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. So you don't have the scenarios up there, but we chose the first one about the clinical staff wanting the peers to report on behavior and adhere to the treatment plan. And we discussed that there is a breakdown in communication between supervision and the clinical staff. So we suggested that be addressed in supervision, as well as recommend them to take the clinical staff to do. We use Relias where I'm at to use a PRSS training to see what is in their scope and what they can and cannot do. And then to snowball off of that, we have, where I work at, I have monthly meetings for CADC. So then I would implement a monthly meeting to involve clinical staff and peer support to bounce ideas off of each other in there. And we measure outcomes, Ms. Francis said, when everybody stops complaining. So. All right, that's it. I'm muting
That's
myself.
awesome, Melissa. Melissa, thanks for sharing. I know you're doing an amazing job down there. It's good to see you in
Thanks.
space again.
Good to see you too, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Would anybody else like to share what scenario they discussed and maybe some of the things they talked about?
Alicia, I see
I
your.
see Alicia has her hand up.
We chose the third scenario about an organization being sort of like a lead organization applying for a grant with a peer-led organization, and the peer-led organization maybe having reservations about being sort of a token. So a big thing that we discussed was the role of collaboration when applying for the grant and outlining metrics of the grant. And setting expectations for both organizations before diving into even probably the application of the grant. And then also in terms of metrics, making sure that there's specific outlines to that are applied to the peer organization. So making sure that whatever those metrics are, they can only be done by a peer, that they're not like, oh, anybody can kind of do this thing, but that they're very specific. And then also representation, making sure that the peer-led organization has representation in all meetings, all discussions, and so that they're involved in the process and not just kind of on the side.
Absolutely. Representation is just so important in this work. Excellent. Would anybody else like to share? Maybe a little bit about what they discussed or?
Hi, so our group actually chose the same one. And so I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that. We also thought it was super, super important to have clear communication and expectations. That kind of just sets things up in the right direction, so you know what you're going into. If there's anything that the peer run organization would disagree with or the agency, then you get that out of the way before it is in motion. But also with the training, I think, we talked about how a lot of agencies may have peers in the organization, but there's still, even with that, I think a stigma. It just kind of, we're getting better, but I don't think we've fully gotten there yet. And I don't think a lot of agencies fully understand what a peer is. Sometimes it's mentioned and it's like, well, the peers are the experts and but what are we doing to show that in real life? So I think that's really important for our words to match and for people to be a part of those trainings so that they understand. I mean, really, the peer has the loudest voice in the room when talking to anybody else that walks through the door. So just being really transparent about that. They may not be the most well-educated or higher education or, the fanciest suit in the room. But the knowledge that they carry, it is priceless. So, I was a client before I was a professional, and that's still my why. So the rest of it is just extra.
Awesome. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing, Rachel. I think it is so important that our language and organizations are in alignment with our principles and philosophies. And then if we're going to utilize peers in the workforce, that they're in alignment with those peer values and what we hold important. I think that's so important. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else before we move on? I know we're getting close to the end here. Last minute burning desires. Awesome. I would like to touch real quick. I think Alicia, or I think somebody mentioned expectations earlier. It is so important. I feel like people put unrealistic expectations on peers sometimes in the workplace. And when we do that, we create challenges, that lead to barriers for people in the workplace. And it's so important that we have realistic expectations about people, what they bring to the table without limiting them. It's so very important. But thanks everybody for sharing. Thanks for the amazing discussion. Oh, I see John's got his hand up. John,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just as a really crisp, clean example, very quickly, in that contract that I have with the subcontract that we were awarded with this organization, we explicitly wrote in expectations and frameworks to say, my organization, this is just specific within the transportation world, but you can do it to any medium that you need to. I told them, listen, I know you can't always give me 72 hours notice when you need transportation, and I can't always provide transportation on a whim to you. That is written into the contract. And I think that's a great microcosm of exactly what we're talking about, to say, hey, listen, yes, my peers will be available to you in the hospital, but just because you call, it doesn't mean we drop everything when we go there. Or, to say, to have this language to say, hey, we're going to have monthly check-ins to make sure that our peers are meeting your expectations and you guys are meeting ours. So the more we can get specific in those contracts or the MOUs or the partnership agreements, the more it provides safeguards in that capacity. I just wanted to highlight a really crisp example of that for you guys.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks for
Thanks,
that insight,
John. Absolutely. Yeah, the reason that we're even doing this training series and having a 2-day in-person training for peer staff in September is because we recognize that not every organization understands utilization of peer recovery support workers, and that there is a lack of fidelity to the peer support model that's impacting our field in really profound ways. And so that's what Peer Power specializes in. We specialize in training materials, technical assistance, and consulting services to ensure that organizations are understanding the role of a peer and how to best capitalize on the strengths that we bring to the table. Because I love what I think it was either Melissa or Rachel, one of you said, we're like the loudest voice. We're the loudest voice, right? Like that's the voice that people hear, is the voice of lived expertise. We've been there, we've done it, and we learned a lot from it. And now we want to share that with you all. So thank you for joining our training. So let's move to next steps, because let's make a commitment. What are some action steps that you can take, or just even one action step that you will commit to taking within the next 30 days to build partnerships with peer-run or recovery community organizations? Drop your response in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and verbally contribute, whichever works for you. What action step will you take within the next 30 days to build partnerships with peer-run or recovery community organizations? It's your opportunity to commit. Okay, nice. So someone's going to offer a QPR training to the interns at your internship site for your CRSS hours. All right. Love that. Nice. All right. So some research to find peer-led organizations in your area. Good. Yes. Thank you, Alicia. Do it. Perfect. Figure out who's in your area. Who can you partner with? Like sometimes that's the first step, is like just knowing who's in your area. John and Mike and I, we're all in different areas of the state. While Mike is down in the southern part of the state, John is south of Springfield, kind of in that rural space, and I'm actually located in Springfield. So we're covering downstate over here, but there's a lot of other peer-run and recovery community organizations that are north of us, south of I-80, but also north of I-80 in that Chicagoland area. Yeah, Francis, trainings. Wonderful. And some of us actually operate statewide. I know Mike is all over the place, not just statewide, but national. Peer Power is all over the place. We're in Illinois and all over the United States.
Mhm.
Good. Love these commitments. This is great. Yeah, thanks, Joanna. I love that you put that in the chat. If you need information about RCOs funded by DBHR, reach out to Kim Schreiner, our friend Kim, the RCO guru. She will let you know what's in your area. That's right. RCOs are her babies. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up today's session. Looking forward to the following 2 sessions. Tony, do you want to tell us about Rooted and Ready?
Rooted and ready, grounded in values and responsive in crisis. And, I'm not in Illinois, but I will be in September. So hopefully, and I'm looking forward to meeting those who are already registered. But for all the peer supporters on this training and any that aren't, if you're watching the recording, we do hope you'll join us for this free 2-day training at that Peer Power is hosting in September. You don't want to miss this engaging opportunity for mutual learning among peers working in crisis settings from across the state. If you are not a peer support worker, then share this with someone who is. I am going to drop 4 links in the chat in a moment here, but these dates are Springfield, September 10th and 11th, and Elgin, September 25th and 26th. We also, before we close today, want to leave you with one more tool to support your continued work. Peer Careers Illinois is a statewide resource designed to uplift and empower support professionals in Illinois. It's a centralized hub where peer support specialists can discover job opportunities, connect with employers, and access the tools they need to grow in their careers. This NAMI Illinois resource is free for both job seekers and employers. We encourage you to explore it and share it with your teams. It's one more way we can stay connected and keep growing together. And so since that concludes our training for today, we do thank you for attending this second training in our 4-part series. And if you haven't already registered for the following, there is a link in the chat for that flyer. Please complete our feedback survey. This does help. It helps us make differences. Like if the breakout groups are working, great. Like we want to make sure that we're providing information and in a way that is helpful to everyone. So we just thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing those who are joining us next week, and keep an eye out for those recordings. They will be coming, and we'll see y'all next time.